From the Clark Ford Studio in Oxford, Mississippi, MBW Digital proudly presents the Oxford Exxon Podcast.
I'd say thanks for tuning in, but why am I going to give you a round of applause for something you're supposed to do, to be frank?
And now, here are your hosts, Chase Parham.
And broadcast school has really paid off.
And Neil McCready.
I deserve to be on TV.
Welcome to this Thursday edition of the Oxford Exxon Podcast. I'm Chase Parham in the Clark Ford Studio, and it's an interview-packed day today. Neil picked up some interviews while he was in Hoover for the SEC Media Days over the course of the week. So we're going to do our typical interview with Jeffrey Wright to open the show, and then we're gonna talk some SEC football with some beat reporters, guys who cover teams around the league. Today we're going to talk to Mike Griffith, who has moved over, now covering Georgia, covered Tennessee for a long time. We're going to talk to John Adams, who does cover the Vols. Jeffrey and I talk about the Vols a little bit as well. And we're going to talk to Tommy Deas, longtime Alabama expert. So those three on tap, in addition to Jeffrey today. On the podcast is brought to you every single day by the Oxford Exxon, Highway 6 West in Oxford. You know about the lunch specials that are $4.99. You know about the daiquiris that are as cheap as $3.99. Or as big as 44 ounces if you so desire. You can save money at the pump with the Speed Pass Plus out, the mobile rewards program. You get a clean, convenient store, and much more there with the Oxford Exxon. And with Clark Ford, you get great prices on your truck, on your car. Corey wants to be that guy for you. You can find out more at 662-257-1900. Just give him a shot. Even if you're not looking to buy right now, get a quote. Just start the process with Corey. It would do us a favor, do him a favor, and frankly, it would do you a favor as well. And when you get down to buying, because he's going to give you a great deal, $500 off if you mention this podcast there with Corey at Clark Ford. We also want to tell you about our good friends at Blue Delta. If you and your friends have been telling yourself you need to get some Blue Delta jeans but can't make it to Oxford until football season, the team at Blue Delta has a solution for you. Give Blue Delta a call or email and have them come to you. No matter where you are, they'll take care of it. Organize a group of friends and family together, and Blue Delta will come to your home and help throw a house pop-up party. Be the host with the most, and Blue Delta be the life of the party. We've done multiple events with those guys over the last year, a little more than a year. We were at the Wonderbird facility in Taylor recently for a great event. We were at the thing at the Lyric a couple months ago. They always have a great time there with Blue Delta. So for details or to schedule a time with that team, you can email them at info@bluedeltajeans.com. And we're going to jump right into the interviews again. Just kind of give you these things in machine gun style today. We're going to lead it off with Jeffrey Wright here on the podcast. Jeffrey, good morning on the first day of the Open Championship. Started, I think coverage was like 12:30 or something this morning. I did not get up at 12:30. I did not stay up to 12:30. We'll get to my morning in a second. But did you adjust your day at all for this?
I woke up a little earlier. I did stay up because listen, when Darren Clark shows up with his hair looking like that at 40 something, whatever, 45 was, it's 41, 2008. I guess he's 49. Like, hair flowing in the wind, silver fox, ripping cigs at like 6:30 a.m. You got to give that man your attention when he's going to rip driver off the first. And he birdied one. It actually was a cool moment. And then I went to bed. And then I think I woke up again at like 5:30.
Yeah, Darren Clark, when he dressed out his Ryder Cup team a couple years ago, like that should have been worth 3.5 points by itself. Yeah,
it's just a shame he drew the I'm going to be the European captain when we're going to play the Ryder Cup over in America, and they're going to set it up easier than the John Deere. So that's a tough break for him.
I mean, that's going to happen every time over here now, though, right?
Yeah, I think we've reached the point where it's just going to be
home
like
team wins.
It's going to be like if you break serve, like you could go on a run. I mean, you're going to win 3 in a row, basically, because it just seems to me they're going to always set it up like they do, which is have tight fairways, penal rough, and not let our guys just hit driver as far as they want. And we're going to do the exact opposite.
Hit and giggle. So this morning, I set the alarm. I asked you last night. I was driving home and said, okay, what are the tee times? What am I looking at for the morning? And I chose Rory's 4:09 Central Time start as my target. So I said, okay, we'll set the alarm for 4. And I woke up earlier than that. I woke up about 3:15. I said, okay, I'm just going to go ahead, get up, go to the couch, leave the alarm on, and if I snooze, doze, whatever, that's cool. I don't go back to sleep at that point, and I'm like, all right. So he makes the 8 on the first hole, so I watch one hole.
2 out of bounds? Like, that was
2.
Confused me. Okay.
Well, no, okay. He hit his tee ball with an iron. Left out of bounds, which I'll be honest, it's kind of a crap out of bounds over there, but nonetheless.
Yeah, no, because the first one, it looked like it was like maybe a row deep into the gallery, and the gallery, basically like the ropes are out of bounds.
So even in Northern Ireland, they couldn't put their body in the way and stop it and help the boy out.
I mean, at least come on, just if your foot somehow happens to kick it forward and not far enough, then yeah, team effort.
That's a good point. We really ought to blame the patrons here because there's no way that ball should have been out of bounds.
Like, this would have happened with Arnold Palmer all the time. And he's considered a legend. And people are openly cheating for him.
Tiger got 15 people to help move that rock that time, that boulder.
Move the rock. What about when he blasted it dead left and they threw the ball back into play in the playoff against Bob May on 18? He should have lost.
So he's out of bounds. He hits his second ball in the left rough. Then he hits his next shot into a spot where it's taken unplayable.
Okay.
So then unplayable, and then he actually hits a great chip and then misses like the 3.5 footer for double or for triple. Sorry. So that's how it started.
So it could have been an impressive 7.
It could have been a really good 7. So I watched one hole. Rolled back over and actually dozed for probably another hour, and then woke up and saw he was 5 over through 3 or whatever it is at that point. Yeah.
Back right now, we're 3 over.
Through how many?
3 over through 13, I think.
Okay. The leader is at 4.
You can't win a tournament. But you can't win a tournament with a quad. Like,
this is not storytelling. This is him making the cut on the number and then finishing T21.
Oh, come on, buddy. We can do a couple of nice back-to-back numbers in the 60s, and that backdoor top 10's still open. Come on. Like, I make fun of Kuchar, but Rory's kind of the low-key king of it.
Well, he is in majors because I saw Kyle Porter put out the other day that he had. I don't remember what the time frame was. But he had 19 top 10s in majors since whatever the date was, and it was by far the most, and half of those probably are just backdoor, non-contention top 10s.
Yeah, like non-threatening, just a good solid. Like, that is the problem with Rory, is almost everyone has a stretch of 9 holes or so per tournament where they don't play well. And Rory's problem is during that 9 holes, not only does he not play well, like, he completely plays himself out of any form of contention.
So where are we putting our viewing and our rooting interest now that he's, for all facts and matters, out of the tournament?
Well, no. He was showing his commitment to me by letting me know that he was going to have a quad on the first hole. He let me know that he was coming for me next week. It was
he is in Memphis next week?
Yeah. He committed yesterday.
Okay, gotcha.
But he said the only way he wouldn't show up is if something pretty special happened in Port Rush and he was still drunk.
Not going to happen.
That is not going to happen, and we figure that out on the first hole.
Who is not coming next week that we know
of? The only 3 outside the top 50 that have not committed are Ricky, Molinari, and Tiger, and I expect Tiger to commit today.
Okay. Do we expect Ricky and Molinari to commit, or we think they're just out?
I did not. We spoke yesterday with Daryl Smith, who runs the tournament, on the afternoon show. I did not get the sense that either one of those guys were coming.
We'll talk about this next week.
First off, Ricky's got bigger commitments, man. That's a WGC. That'd be kind of a tough win. Ricky's got some PGA. He's got, the PGA Tour. He's got the FedEx Cup playoffs coming in. He's got to be ready, man. That's another cash grab.
It's a free cut. It's guaranteed money. I mean, that's Ricky's kind of event.
Yeah, but don't forget. I don't know what the sponsorship obligations are. he could easily be down in. Although it seems like he's basically taking a look at Ricky right now. And listen, I understand he's without sin cast the first stone, but it looks like Ricky's got to get back down to South Florida and start eating, because he'll be in Northern Ireland, probably not exactly enjoying the cuisine. But Rick looks like those mediums aren't fitting quite like they used to.
He's gained a couple pounds since he got in the relationship.
Couple.
Yeah.
Is two the new 20?
He hadn't gained 20.
Buddy, when you're that size, like that's at least 15 pounds. When you get that noticeable, that's like double digits.
On this stretch, he's going to be wearing Under Armour or Adidas in a couple months.
Well, Adidas is the one for fat guys that they put all like. I'm not convinced Rom's actually that big. It's just the way like Adidas clothes fit, it makes him look even fatter. So let's get Rick in that.
DJ might be the only person that can pull off Adidas.
You know who else doesn't look bad in it? Matt Wolf.
Okay.
But Matt Wolf's also, 20?
Yeah.
Then again, Rom was 21 and didn't look good on it.
Well, fair enough. So I'm going to ask this. We'll move away from golf in a second. What does next week mean to Memphis? I mean, I know it's a standard radio kind of softball question, but I mean, you're getting a lot more guys in town that have ever been there before. Just getting this type of standing, I mean, is it resonating at all?
Let's see. It's Thursday at 8. Give me 12 hours, and I'll tell you how much it'll resonate. Because if Tiger Woods shows up, it's the second, in my opinion, it's the second biggest sporting event ever in Memphis if Tiger shows up. Because, yeah, Tyson Lewis is always just going to be bigger. I mean, for God's sakes, Denzel Washington flew in to watch Tyson Lewis. But in terms of just true, I mean, Tiger Woods is an American phenom. Like, you know, Jack has a better career, but Jack never touched Tiger's stardom. You know, especially when you consider the African American presence in this city. Yeah, it's a big deal if he shows up. I'd love to give some like, what's it matter? But no, if Tiger Woods shows up, because part of it was never thought to be possible to get Tiger Woods here in Memphis. And I can't tell you how many people, even when it was a WGC, he's not coming. I've been pretty resolute all along. I have thought he's coming, and as we've gotten closer and closer to the actual tournament date, I feel more and more confident than ever.
Okay.
But, you know, and that's, you know, for all the no laying up guys, you know, saying this should be in Scotland or in Ireland or whatever they want to do, like, yeah, they're not the ones stroking the check. FedEx is, and FedEx decided that it was important to have this opportunity. You know, they can spin it all they want. It's not just wanting to have a big tournament. This was their way to try to get Tiger Woods here.
And when FedEx puts the amount of money they put into the PGA Tour, they're going to get that concession. Period.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you're now no longer allowed to wear UPS logos on your body. You could be grandfathered in, but you're not. I mean,
that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's how. Yeah, I mean, and as you clearly state, if you write that kind of check, so be it.
Yeah. So a little bit of basketball news coming out. I know you don't get tired of talking about that every single day. College basketball, though, not recruiting, not Peach Jam or anything like that. NCAA, in writing about Mark Gottfried, said that essentially he didn't ask enough questions about how they were suddenly getting better players than they had gotten in the past. I'm
sure Duke will be getting the same letter tomorrow.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. This comes on the heels of Auburn. Actually, before Auburn comes out saying they're going to get a notice of allegations, obviously pertaining to Chuck Person. What kind of trouble is Auburn in here?
I mean, sounds like a lot. Because if you that is. So did Kentucky get one of these letters right when they got Cal and they started getting better players? Like, at least sometimes when they've been hypocritical, they've at least had some form of logic. But this is where it goes out the window. Like, okay, so we're saying you're getting better players than you should be getting, but you had to cheat to get them, but the other guys don't? Like, that is the ultimate stupid or liar. Like, are you stupid, or are you just or you just straight up lying because you know you have to make some kind of PR show, and you're not going to upset the apple cart in terms of biggest viewership. You're not going to upset business. So, like, if I'm Auburn, I'm scared.
You're potentially going to let Arizona and LSU skate. You did nothing to Carolina, and yet you're going to bust the Wolfpack.
Arizona, I guess, kind of sort of makes sense, but LSU makes no sense to me. What are they? They're clearly scared of something. Oh, never mind. Their son-in-law is the AD. Or the president's son-in-law is the AD.
Neil and I talked about this. Was that the reason he was hired, or at least a primary reason?
I'm sure it didn't hurt.
If it was a 50-50 thing, the family tree is going to push it over the top.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. Were you not... I don't know. The way that they sold Scott Woodard and, favorite son returning home and all, all the hyperbole and whatnot, I don't know. My BS radar went off immediately. Like, something's fishy here. And then, lo and behold, oh, wow, he married smart.
Will Wade going to... Okay, let's do it this way. Bruce Pearl or Will Wade? Who's at their school longer?
Part of me wants to say Bruce because Bruce is a little smarter. Will Wade's a couple of Bible verse tweets away from being Hugh Freeze. They're very much in that same mold.
He's showing the young, kind of immature hubris when it comes to the NCAA matters, where at some point
I'll say it clearly for those that don't understand. Will Wade is not nearly as smart as he thinks he is.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Hugh's biggest problem.
I mean, because Bruce, in a complimentary way here, I mean, he's kind of a cockroach. He finds a way to keep going.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he's more of a survivalist.
Yeah.
And Will Wade, inevitably that was Hugh's problem. Hugh was not a survivalist. Hugh was so worried about protecting his own legacy and image of himself that he lost the survival instincts.
Did see Liberty selling a lot of football tickets.
What about trips down to Tampa?
Not sure. Yeah. Did you guys talk...
Bible study.
Yeah. Have you guys spent a second on any SEC Media Day topic?
Saban yesterday. Saban taking a look in the mirror when trying to determine what went wrong in the national championship game. Nick took a nice long look in the mirror, and he knew that wasn't the problem. And he moved straight on to blaming his coaches, his players. We discussed that. Jeremy Pruitt's 21-minute filibuster. Like, if you're Jeremy Pruitt and you're going to pull that move, don't you need to wait until, maybe a year you don't? The last time that you played, you lost 38-13 against Vanderbilt. I feel like that's, not a move for a guy coming off a 5-7 season where he got beat 150-14 in his last two games.
But isn't that exactly the move? Because it's guys with no direction that just kind of do that because they don't want to do anything else?
Yeah, but, that's a move of, I'm just going to coach football. It's well, yeah, that works if you win.
It's everybody found it cute when Les Miles did it.
Right. And Les was having a bad year at 9-3. I don't know. To me, I don't know. I'm not sold on him. I think we did the over. Remember how we were going the way of forever and I was need a Saban guy. And then none of them worked. And then all of a sudden Kirby works and it's we got to get another Saban guy. It's we're just back to that. And I don't know. I don't think Kirby works because he worked for Nick Saban. I think Kirby works because everyone on Georgia's bought in.
I thought Pruitt was going to be an absolute train wreck, and then he was okay last year. So I've sort of reversed course where I think he's going to be mediocre. He's not going to be a disaster.
Was he okay, or did he just beat an Auburn team without a pulse at 11:30 in the morning?
Does he get 6 wins this year?
He better.
I mean, they're delusional as a fan base, so if he doesn't win 8 or 9, he's going to get fired in like 3 or 4 years. But
let's see. Seriously, I'm trying to think if he beat anyone last year. The Auburn win on the road. Who were their wins? They beat Auburn.
But they're not good. I mean, they had no draft picks last year.
Oh, I know. Memphis had more draft picks. All right, here were their wins last year.
Yeah.
Indiana State, ETSU,
Okay.
UTEP, shut UTEP out, by the way. And they beat Auburn, and then Charlotte, 14-3.
That's it?
Oh, they Kentucky. They beat Kentucky. So that was their 5th win. So Kentucky was a pretty good win at home. And then they beat an Auburn team without a pulse.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I'm not. To me, if you're going to pull that routine, you better have recruited better than he did last year.
I don't see more than 6 wins this season.
All right,
Vanderbilt, Kentucky, UAB.
By the way, I've decided to back off of Missouri.
You're backing off?
I remembered yesterday Kelly Bryant sucks.
Okay.
I had
Georgia State.
to rank the quarterbacks yesterday for the SEC.
Okay, there's a good shot they go 4-0 in the non-league if they beat BYU. So 4-0.
Yes. Yeah. I that's what I was saying. Like, so this is going to work against him, though. If you look at their non-league, they could be. Is it 4-0 coming into the Florida game?
Looking at days.
Maybe it's 3-0.
It's 3-0. It's 3-0.
So 3-0 coming into the Florida game. They'll beat BYU. They'll be 3-0 going into that Florida game, and then he's going to have some expectations, and then
They could lose 5 in a row after that.
Yes.
Easily lose 5 in a row.
Florida, Georgia, Alabama, State at home. There's one more I'm missing. Carolina.
Now, they could beat Carolina and they could beat State. Both games are at home.
Yeah. But my thing is, if you go 1-4 in that's not a bad stretch.
It's not. And now the other good news is they, in theory, if you're backing off Missouri a little bit and think that's possible, they could go 3-1 or 4-0 at the finish because they've got UAB, Kentucky, Missouri, and Vanderbilt. Now they could go 2-2 as well, but they could go 1-3. But
yeah, I just think Vanderbilt's going to be horrible this year. Kentucky, I think, takes a step back. I think Carolina's got a chance to be what Kentucky was this year.
Yep.
I'm higher on Carolina than I am Missouri.
Because of Jake Bentley instead of Kelly Bryant?
Yeah, I just people go pop in some Kelly Bryant film. He can't throw at all. It's the same thing with everyone just thinking that Oklahoma is going to all of a sudden be back. Do people not remember Jalen Hurts trying to throw the football? The guys that played before him both went number 1 in the NFL draft.
We are discounting the loss of Drew Lock.
I have been consistently, I've said this for as long as you've known me, I do not have the Lincoln Riley as a genius gene.
Yeah.
I thought Baker Mayfield was an elite player, and I thought Kyler Murray was an elite player.
Not giving all that to the coach.
No,
it feels step back for Oklahoma.
And they lost, I believe they lost 4 out of 5 offensive linemen. Off an offensive line, Kyler Murray averaged something like 2.5 days to throw the football per pass last year.
So are you buying Texas to win the Big 12?
Well, no. I would rather die than bet on them to actually deliver. That's weird with the Herman thing where, like, when they're an underdog, he's, like, 15-1. And then when he's favored, he's like 1-6.
That's not a shock, though. It feels like that with him.
Yeah, I can kind of see what you mean in that, like, he plays the underdog role well.
Yeah.
But then when expectations come, he gets kind of tight.
Yeah, that crap works when you're trying to go beat somebody a little better than you.
I agree.
Yeah, it just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't fit. So
I don't have a problem with that take.
Yeah. Any you still doing basketball recruiting? What's up on the show this week?
Well, thank God we did not discover that Penny talked to Andy Katz for 10 minutes last week until yesterday, so we got to do that.
Ooh, okay.
That is a great question. I have no idea what the hell we're going to talk about today. I think I'm ranking SEC fight songs.
Are you really?
Yeah.
You already queued them all up?
Yeah, listen, I've been here before.
We've done this before. What's 2 and 1 for you?
War Eagles 1 and probably Fight for LSU's 2.
In the environment, LSU has got to be 1 or 2.
Well, yeah, if I can
Different
turn
from the studio.
If I can turn the lights down and then I get to play Tiger Rag with the fat guy tuba right after the S, the guy holds it, really gets wide, leans in, and then it rips into Fight for LSU. Yeah, then but just pound for pound, the best fight song is War Eagle.
Yeah. All right, bud. Have a good day.
All right.
Take a quick break here and tell you about Community Mortgage. We told you for a couple every weeks now that interest rates are as low as they've been in about the last 2 years. Maybe it's time to refinance. Maybe it's time to purchase. Just get a look at what Jason can do for you if you're one of their four areas: Oxford, Memphis, Soto County, or Chattanooga. You can find him at 662-234-2704 or JLOWE@communitymtg.com.
The podcast is also brought to you by our friends at Dead Soxy. Again, go to deadsoxy.com, enter the promo code Rebel Grove at checkout. You get 30% off all orders, including the sale items, including the no-shows, which would feel really good right about now. Deadsoxy.com, promo code Rebel Grove, get 30% off all orders. You don't want to miss 1 minute of the action at the Vault this season. Ole Miss football arrives this September. September the 7th, I think, it's the opener against Arkansas, the home opener. Reserve your season tickets with the new 2019 season ticket pricing for just $299. For more information, visit OleMissTix.com. Podcast also brought to you by Pinnacle Trust based in Madison, Mississippi. They provide detailed, specialized investment management, financial planning, retirement planning for individuals and businesses, and much more. They also have the Pinnacle Trust 401k advisory services. If your company is not particularly happy with the 401k plan that you have set up, it's not performing the way that you want it to perform, it's a headache, get in touch with the people at Pinnacle Trust. They're Pinnacle Trust Retirement Plan Advisory Team. They specialize in a lot of different plans, 401k plans, 403b plans, whatever you might need. That initial consultation is free. It's pintrust.com, PINN trust.com. Podcast also brought to you by the Westin Jackson, home to Soul Spa, the ultimate luxury spa experience in downtown Jackson, and also Estelle Wine Bar and Bistro, where you can get a creative craft cocktail, enjoy the curated wine list, and enjoy Chef Caden's many fantastic offerings there at Estelle Wine Bar and Bistro. Podcast also brought to you by John Edwards, Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. A lot of you have used John. You've gone to him. He's part of Virtuoso. And you've gone to him and said, hey, here's kind of what I'm thinking about doing. I've got some ideas. I've got a budget. Here's my budget. Now, what can you do? And so far, John's turned around a lot of trips. A 30th anniversary trip to Italy, Venice, Lake Como, Florence, Rome, a fall trip to Greenbrier, a trip to Alaska for fishing and hiking, bear viewing, all that stuff. He's done a lot of different things. In other words, he really knows the travel business inside and out. Get in touch with him, 901-494-3387, or send him an email, jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients will save $50 off their first book trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. And we're brought to you by Grenada Nissan. If you're in the market for a Nissan vehicle, that's the place to go. Grenada Nissan is in Grenada, Mississippi. It's just off Interstate 55. I've done business with them for more than a decade. They're fantastic. You'll love them too. It's GrenadaNissanUSA.com.
My longtime friend Mike Griffith, now with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, kind enough to join us on the podcast. You've been all over the league. Now you're covering the Dogs. You just kind of follow the winners around. Is that right?
Well, I don't know about that. But Georgia's a pretty good football team, Neil. Certainly, I believe they're on a level with Alabama. The last couple games have shown that. But they haven't been able to get over the hump. And, of course, at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to is who wins the prize. It's still Alabama's football league, but Georgia does appear to be knocking on the door.
What do they have to do to get through that door?
Well, they've got the talent. I think the window is shrunk to this year. Now, next year's going to be, I don't want to call it a rebuild, I'll call it a reload, because Kirby's had top three signing classes in a row, so I think they'll reload, but there doesn't appear to be an immediate answer for Jake Fromm should he go pro after his junior season this year. So I do think there's a sense of urgency in Athens. I think they're going to lose at least 3 of those 5 starters on that offensive line, which quite frankly may be the best offensive line I've ever seen at the college level, going back to my days covering college ball in 1993 at Auburn. And these guys are good across the board. They average about 330 pounds on that front line. So there is a sense of urgency. There are some question marks. The receiving core, they lost their top 5 receivers from a year ago. There's talent there, but you wonder how quickly Jake Fromm can get in sync with these young receivers and these incoming transfers.
Yet DeAndre Swift at running back behind that offensive line is he's a Heisman candidate.
Yeah, DeAndre's dynamic. I think that from a talent standpoint, he's as good as anyone in the country. There are some questions that need to be answered. From the Heisman standpoint, Neil, I wonder about the numbers. Yeah. We love numbers in sports, and Kirby likes to use 3 backs, and he likes there to be some balance. And, Georgia's, I think, maybe the only program that in back-to-back years had 2 1,000-yard rushers, and they were 4 different guys. You had Chubb and Michelle in 17, and then you had Holyfield and Swift last year. I think Swift will be a 1,000-yarder this year. Maybe Harrion, maybe James Cook, maybe Zamir White if he's healthy. So I wonder how many carries DeAndre will get in terms of will he do enough statistically to be a Heisman candidate. And then just as far as the effectiveness for Georgia, I kind of wonder a little bit about his durability. He had double hernia surgery in January of 2018. It affected him through spring. It slowed him at times last year. He's had a foot injury. And you just wonder if a player who's that dynamic and explosive with those fast twitch muscles, you kind of compare him to the German sports car. Is he going to be in the shop too much? But this will be a big year for Swift. I think he will also go pro after his junior year of the season.
So you think Fromm goes pro after his junior year? What is it about his game that makes you believe that he's ready for that jump?
I don't know that he's ready for it, Neil, but I know that if he loses 3 or 4 of his 5 starting offensive linemen and he's projected in the top 15 in the draft, it's a business decision. And more we see these NFL teams bring guys in and say, hey, you know what? We'll finish off the development. We'll put Jake behind a veteran. Belichick likes, Georgia guys quite a bit. And I'm not suggesting that Jake is the next Tom Brady whatsoever. And I've got my questions about Jake as an NFL quarterback.
Such as?
Lack of mobility. And not to say that he's not mobile, but nowadays the mobile guys are really mobile guys. The guys that can tuck in and run can really, really hurt you. I don't see Jake as that sort of runner. I don't think he has the mobility, for example, of Drew Brees. Now, he's a little bit taller than Drew, but he's not a prolific pocket guy. He's not 6'4", 6'5", like you'd like to see these guys. More and more, it seems like you're either the mobile guy or the pocket guy. Jake's kind of a little in between, although his mobility isn't that great, and I don't think he has the stature in the pocket. He's very accurate. He's great with his pre-snap reads, high football IQ, can put the ball in the money, but he's a guy that would have to go, in my opinion, to the right system and maybe be sort of maybe a Jeff Garcia for folks that might remember him with the 49ers, a highly efficient guy.
We've talked a lot of offense, yet I talk to people around that Georgia program and they tell me it's a historically good defense potentially. You've seen a lot of great defenses in this league. You've covered Alabama and Auburn and Tennessee and now Georgia. How good can this defense be in Athens?
Yeah, not ready to put it with 92 Alabama or 98 Tennessee or even a couple of those Auburn defenses I saw. Not ready to put it there. Now, that's because I don't think that their defensive front is as dominant as those programs. If there's one area of Georgia when you compare them to Alabama and Clemson where they don't pass the smell test, it's that defensive line play. They don't have that dominant defensive line play. They've been adequate. Now, their back seven is very good. I think Georgia's secondary is vastly underrated. I think it's the best secondary in the SEC. Even though they lost first-rounder DeAndre Baker to the New York Giants, I still think they're stocked up enough with safeties and corners, and Kirby can do so much more. There's a lot of talent at linebacker, but it's not settled yet. Yeah. I need to see that group settle in. But I do think from a talent perspective, Georgia's back seven is probably as talented as anybody's in the country. I just have my questions about the defensive line. They need to take a step forward before I call them a truly great defense.
Obviously, Alabama's the challenge in the West. Is there a challenge in the East to Georgia, or is it basically the only team that can beat Georgia is Georgia?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say that, particularly early in the season when you look at Georgia and Fromm trying to get in sync with these receivers. It is true Georgia has beaten every SEC East Division teams by double digits going back to 2016 and hasn't lost a game. They're 12-0 the last 2 years, all double-digit wins against the East. I'll tell you, a team that's kind of on the up right now that gave Georgia some trouble last year was Missouri. And, I don't know what Kelly Bryant is going to do to that offense. I mean, I think Derek Dooley has proven he's a good offensive mind. I know he had a rough go of it at Tennessee trying to clean up that Lane Kiffin nuclear spill when they were under investigation for 3 years and they couldn't recruit anybody, and Kiffin brought in the negative kids into the program. So I don't know if I want to judge Derek Dooley on his time at Tennessee. It's a tough gig, as we've seen. But from the standpoint of X's and O's, I mean, Drew Lock came back for his senior year to play for Derek Dooley because of the things that Derek learned working with the Dallas Cowboys. So now I want to see what Derek does with Kelly Bryant. I don't want to sell Missouri short. They've got a really good offensive line. They've proven to me that defensively they're legit. I'll be honest, Neil, I was one of the people that questioned Missouri and really didn't think they belonged in the league. At the time, I was more of a proponent for West Virginia, but Missouri has proven to me on the football field that they're legit. I mean, they've won 2 SEC East Division titles since they've joined the league in 2012, and there's I can only think of 2 other programs that can say that.
Yeah. You've been around the league. I ask people this because I think it's interesting, because obviously we're at some point approaching the end of the Nick Saban era. He's not presumably going to coach forever. How has he impacted this league?
Well, he impacts it more and more every year. And in fact, just listening to Coach Saban this morning, just talking philosophy. Here's 3 reasons why honesty is important. And, you can either, tell people to do it the right way or make everybody happy, when he was asked if he was difficult. And you just listen to the wisdom of Saban, and you realize there's a reason we look around the league and see Kirby Smart and Jimbo Fisher and Jeremy Pruitt and all these former Saban coaches, because they learn from the guy. And one of the funny things he says is these guys that, people say I'm hard to work for, and then they go head coach somewhere else, they do things the same way, and it's kind of true. I'm starting to have, I've had a greater appreciation for Saban as the years have gone by, and the reason why is because he's able to change coordinators every year and stay at the top. The constant is Nick Saban. In Alabama, you can say it's Alabama, and certainly, Neil, you've got a great background understanding Alabama and Auburn football as well as anybody that I know, and that tradition does carry a punch, but there have been times when Alabama's down. It's not like you just walk in and win there. Saban's had to move mountains to get the type of facilities that they've needed, and now he's been able to make the sort of hires where, Alabama can change coordinators like we change sport coats and be just as effective, and to me, that's the mark of a great football coach, because I haven't seen anyone sustain success without continuity like Nick Saban has.
Last thing I want to get into with you is, because we talked about it before, there's a lot of talk this week about the Georgia-Florida game. It's always been in Jacksonville. That's the great tradition, the cocktail party and all of that stuff. Yet Kirby Smart was asked about it yesterday, kind of gave a sort of a diplomatic sort of answer, which typically means I'd like to move it to campus. You and I covered the Iron Bowl back when they played it in Birmingham, and now you couldn't drag it back to campuses. Ole Miss and State used to play in Jackson, and neither school would ever abandon that game from their campus right now. 10 years from now, Georgia, Florida, is it still in Jacksonville or is it in Gainesville and Athens?
There's a chance it can be there in some way, shape, or form, but maybe not for Georgia's home game. Every other year Georgia has an opportunity to play Florida at home as a designated home game. More importantly, bring in recruits to a Georgia-Florida game. And, these official visit weekends are so important, particularly now that they've moved the official signing day up to December, mid-December. So, if you're Georgia, you can't ask Kirby Smart to do everything he possibly can to win win a national championship, except save that weekend so I can go on vacation. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And, you and I were talking just a few minutes ago. To give an equivalent of that, would Alabama play LSU in New Orleans every year because it was a tradition or because Alabama fans wanted to party on bourbon? Absolutely not.
Well, Nick Saban sure wouldn't.
Well, no, and I don't think Alabama fans would want to forego that. When that game went there in 1933, Neil, it was a different time, okay? There wasn't an SEC championship game 2 or 3 weeks later. There wasn't a college football playoff. Recruiting and official visit weekends, it was a different era. So to try and apply that tradition from 1933 to now and the practicality of it, I mean, I've talked with Gene Stallings and Pat Dye about the Iron Bowl, and they both agree it was great to move it out of Birmingham. And I don't know if there were fears that people thought the tradition would lose some luster if it wasn't in Birmingham, but it hasn't lost anything. It's still the greatest college football rivalry as a home and home. And by the way,
if anything, it's enhanced it.
And by the way, when we talk about tradition, the tradition in college football is to play home and home, not neutral site.
Mike, as always, man, thanks for the time.
Appreciate it. Good stuff.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you.
Good stuff.
John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel joins. I'll start with Tennessee because we talk about this on our podcast a lot. I'm sure you've heard this for a while. 2 decades ago, Tennessee was unquestionably an elite program, recruited whoever they wanted to recruit, were in the race for national championships, won a national championship. It hasn't been that way for a while. Is it because of something that's happened culturally, systemically, or is it just cyclical?
Neil, I think it's a lot of things that factor into this, obviously. But if you go back and look at the 90s when Tennessee was really, really good, other than when General Neyland was the coach, I mean, it didn't have a run like that going 45-5 for that period of time. What was going on in the rest of the league? Alabama was down. LSU was a mess. Auburn was up and down. Georgia wasn't rolling. It was just a different league back then. Florida was the only really consistently outstanding program at that time. Now it's altogether different. I think that's a big part of it.
So Jeremy Pruitt going into year 2, it was not a weird hire. It just was Tennessee had a kind of a difficult time filling that job. They end up with Jeremy Pruitt. What was sort of your grade for him in year 1, and what does he have to do year 2 and moving forward to sort of get a foothold in Knoxville?
You know, it's really hard to grade him because the talent was really down, maybe more so than I realized. Players, good recruiting by Butch Jones, but the guys just didn't develop. So overall, he's improved the program, I would say, but he's still got a long way to go. And I think the challenge now is he's got some new assistant coaches. Can he make this work better than what he had in year 1? The schedule is easier. He should win more games. He's got to keep recruiting well, which he's kind of doing. But it's a tough go when you're behind. You're basically recruiting the same kind of guys that Alabama and Georgia are, and you're running a similar system. How do you get guys to come to your place instead of there?
It's probably only Auburn is the program most impacted by Alabama and Georgia being on top of their game. I mean, Tennessee is dramatically impacted by those two programs being elite right now.
Yeah, to me, Tennessee and Auburn are in similar situations. Auburn has obviously done better recently, no question about that. But yeah, I mean, Tennessee's recruiting Georgia well, but Georgia's recruiting so well nationally. And same power running game, kind of pro-style passing game, 3-4 defenses. All the things that Alabama and Georgia do, Tennessee's trying to replicate without the same personnel.
Can Tennessee recruit nationally? Is that a realistic expectation?
I think it is, because it's always recruited nationally. It's always had to recruit nationally. You go back, General Neyland recruited nationally. So that is one thing in its favor. It's never been able to rely on in-state recruiting, or even regional recruiting for that matter.
What about this Tennessee team? What do you expect from them in terms of strengths, weaknesses on the field?
Main thing I look at is in terms of a weakness, the defensive front, all new guys, and I just don't know how good those guys would be. You know how it goes in this league. If you can't stop the run, you got big problems. Everything kind of flows down from that. It affects so many areas. So that's the question I would have. I think Jared Garantano would be better at quarterback. I think the offensive line would be better. Receivers will be better. Running game about the same. And the defense, secondary will be better. Linebackers pretty good. That would be the strength of the defense. But not sold on whether Tennessee can stop the run.
If it doesn't go well, and Tennessee's one of those teams, there's several of them in the league this year where the upside is one thing and the downside is another, and both scenarios are realistic. If it doesn't go well, does Pruitt go into a hot seat mode as early as year 3, or is he going to get time there?
I think they lose 7 games again. I think, yeah, he could. I don't know if he'll be on the hot seat. It helps that Philip Fulmer, the AD, hired him. And he's put his reputation on the line, and he's a football guy, and that he made this hire, and that's what he's counting on. So he's totally in on Pruitt, and he'll give him support. But the fan base at Tennessee is really weary of rebuilding and changing the culture and all that kind of stuff. Back-to-back 5-7 seasons, coming off 4-8 in Butch's last year, it'd be devastating for the fan base.
And it's that massive stadium, so many seats, and if you can't fill it up, the empty seats become almost an indictment, whether that's fair or not.
Well, the actual attendance last year, people in the seats, Tennessee home game, 77,000.
It's 30-something thousand empty seats.
Yeah, and granted, everybody's down. It's not what it used to be. People are staying home, watching it on high-def TV. But, man, that's, as you mentioned, that was a selling point in itself for Tennessee football. You see that stadium that goes up into the sky, 102,000 seats filled. They're pretty narrow seats, admittedly. But it was a selling point to me for Tennessee football.
Sure. You've covered this league for a while, a good while. I have too. What's the impact of what Nick Saban's done at Alabama? How has it changed the league?
Oh, I think it's changed the league dramatically. If you go back to when Nick Saban was at LSU and won that championship in 2003, that kind of started the SEC kind of on a run. Right after that, you had Auburn won a national championship. LSU won another one under Les Miles. You had Florida with Urban Meyer. You had a lot of teams winning championships, but then Alabama just started, no, this is our league. And what it's done, it certainly impacts Auburn. You know how the fans are at Auburn. It doesn't matter how well you're doing. If you keep playing second to Alabama, that's not good enough. And I just think it's put more pressure on everybody in this league to be good.
Does he win again? Does Saban win another one?
I think it's set up for him, too. Alabama's been getting, I think, undue criticism in the offseason. I mean, not terrible criticism, but, the coaching attrition, that people are pointing to that, the blowout loss to Clemson. Well, let's look at that. Tua was not at full speed, nowhere close at the end of the year. If he's healthy, that might have been a 40-30 type game. Still think Clemson would have won. Coaching attrition, he's always had it. And the other thing, and I think the most important thing, when you start doubting Alabama and Nick Saban, that gives him fuel. And I think that will be a driving force this year. I like Alabama to win it all.
Yeah, I do too, for the exact same reason you just mentioned. Every time anybody doubts him, they step up, and he's got the veteran quarterback and presumably a healthy veteran quarterback. And I'm with you. They're my pick to win the whole thing.
Oh, I agree. I mean, you think about Alabama, you think defense, power, running. But that passing game with the quarterback and those 4 receivers, my gosh, this is like an Oklahoma offense with a better defense.
Last question, kind of curious. You covered Lane Kiffin at Tennessee, and he's kind of, in some ways, sort of rebuilt his reputation to a certain degree right now. Do you see him landing a big Power 5 job at some point if he continues to have some degree of success at Florida Atlantic?
I kind of think he will. I think he's a really talented guy offensively, really smart guy with offense. And he was probably too young to be a head coach, had a lot of holes in his game, as everybody knows, and the things that have happened, a checkered past. And I think he is working at rebuilding his image. I think he needs to stay there a while and have success. If I were an AD, I'd want him to show some consistency and just stay somewhere a while and win and show he can manage a program. But I wouldn't want to hire him right now. I would want to wait and let him do something for a while and have not just build a team, but build a program.
John, thanks for the time.
Sure thing, Neil. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
That was easy. Enjoyed it. Yeah.
Me too.
Tell you about Mastercut's Lawn and Landscape, premium lawn care throughout northern Mississippi, but they offer a lot more as well. They build custom playgrounds, retaining walls, pool decks, outdoor living spaces with paver patios, forestry mulching, and much more. You can find them online at gomastercuts.com or get a free quote with the phone number 662-607-7773. Again, that's gomastercuts.com.
We're also brought to you by Harry Alexander. Harry's an Oxford-based RE/MAX legacy realty agent, big part of Savannah Square, 9-acre development that's 0.7 of a mile from the Oxford downtown square. It's located east of North Lamar, short stroll from the Midtown Shopping Center. You can check out the model home at 215 William Street. Then you can get in touch with Harry at 662-801-5621 at savannahsquareoxford.com. The Oxford Park Commission currently registering for youth flag football and the fall baseball season. Leagues are open for ages 6 to 12 in football and 6 to 15 in baseball. The cost to sign up for football is $50. It's just $40 for baseball. Each sport will be played at F&C Park. For more details, go to oxfordparkcommission.com. Podcast also brought to you by Oxford University Bank, OUB, locally owned and operated right here in Oxford. When you deposit money at OUB, that money and the vast majority of the bank's profits go right back into the Oxford community. It's home to Kasasa, the absolute best cash checking account. They also have a commercial checking account, now paying 1% interest on the account as long as you keep $10,000 in it. It comes with fully interactive online banking. To learn more, go to Live Oxford, bankoxford.com, or call 662-234-6668. OUB is FDIC insured. Everyone loves their pets. No one loves stepping in their pet stuff, and certainly no one loves tracking that stuff back into the house. If you want to eliminate that problem, get in touch with Scoopers Pet Waste Removal, LLC. For $10 a cleaning, they'll clean up your yard. They'll do it on your schedule, whether that's weekly, bi-weekly, or a one-time service. No contracts required. You can cancel at any time. If you have multiple dogs, it's $2 for each additional dog. It's scoopers.oxfordpetwaste@gmail.com or 662-506-2754. Scoopers Pet Waste Removal, they're number one and your pet's number two business. And we're brought to you by 7 South Tailgating. 7 South is the premier tailgating service provider at Ole Miss. They offer your standard tailgating services such as tent, table, and chair setup, breakdown, but they also offer so much more. They'll set up, break down, store your own personal gear. You can rent from them. They have cooler service, TV, satellite service, storage bins for supplies, decor, chandeliers, basically everything you could possibly imagine with tailgating. They've got it. Call or go online today for a detailed quote customized to your specific needs. 662-321-1682 or visit 7southtailgating.com.
Podcast also brought to you by G&M Pharmacy there on South Lamar and Oxford. They deliver local to your home or workplace in the Oxford area. They also offer MedSync, which means they fill your prescriptions the same day of the month, every single month, to make it easy on you. 662-236-2222 is the phone number, and while you're in there, if something you're interested in or want more information on, you can find out more about the sildenafil. It is the cheaper alternative to other brands. Rating as little as 15 minutes. You can break those pills into a half, into a quarter if needed. And you can even get discretion if that is required as well. You can just go to TysonDrugs.com or GandMPharmacy.com. Click Product Request and request a prescription right there online.
Tommy Deas now of the Tennessean joins us on the podcast. We'll start right here. Since you're in Tennessee, it's the year of the Vol. The Vols are back. How many fans will Tennessee take to the national championship game this year?
I think they probably sell it out all by themselves. The Tennessee fans don't know where or when the national championship game is this year. They think the SEC championship game, the league championship game's in Atlanta, but they haven't looked that up for quite a while. So it's been a minute. Tennessee's back in Knoxville, but I don't think they're back at the top of the SEC East, which has been a long time ago.
I was talking to John Adams about this earlier in the week. It's been a while since they've been the team, and they did have a run there where they dominated the SEC in some ways. It's been a long time. Is there a path back to that place for Tennessee, or has that moment passed?
Well, here's the thing, and the moment passed is the key there, because there was Florida under Urban Meyer, and they were the dominant team in the East. And, back in the day, the East was the place to be. It's what the West is now, and it's starting to get better in the East. But there was a point after Urban Meyer, at the end of Urban Meyer, where it was wide open for somebody to step through that door, and Tennessee could have been that team with the right coach and the right everything. And Missouri steps in and goes to the championship game twice, and eventually Georgia has emerged as the team in the East, and we'll see if Florida gets back to being the team. But Tennessee never made a move, and can they get back there? Yeah, over time, but it's not going to happen anytime soon. The talent gap, 4 good recruiting cycles where you're finishing between, let's say, 10 and 15 in the nation, that puts you about 7th in the SEC or 6th in the SEC. You don't overtake what's in front of you without recruiting past them.
And I think they're typically, I guess I'm taking a shot at the people that write my paycheck here, and I don't mean to, but I think Tennessee has a tendency to get overranked as it pertains to recruiting.
It's possible, and I would have to dig into that to see. But here's the reality is that if you look in a circle of proximity to Tennessee, the state of Tennessee doesn't produce they produce some good football players. Every state produces some. They don't produce a huge number where, like in Louisiana, where if you win the state, you're stocked, and then you grab a few to supplement that. And then you look what surrounds them, Kentucky and North Carolina. Atlanta is probably the nearest recruiting ground to Knoxville, and that's got Georgia and Alabama, and everybody else already has a footprint there that Tennessee hasn't been able to create. When Tennessee was good, back when the 90s, or whenever you want to say that was, it was a lot of guys from California and Ohio and places like that, and that's the
Louisiana.
Louisiana. Yeah. It was grabbing, T. Martin from Mobile. It wasn't grabbing the proximate guy. It was grabbing, they had to get the best players they could. But heck, I remember I worked in the Nashville Banner from the mid-'80s to 90 or 91, and in that span, Tennessee never got the best player in the state. He went to Alabama, or he went to Penn State, or he went somewhere like that.
So you're there in SEC East territory, but I know that you see the whole league as a whole. We'll start in the East because I'm curious. Kirby's been literally on the cusp of winning the SEC, of winning the national title. I mean, they've been a play away. Mm-hmm.
They've been one Alabama backup quarterback away from winning the title.
Yeah.
Mac Jones is the most feared man in Athens. He's the Alabama backup quarterback if you don't have the depth chart in front of you.
Is this the year Georgia gets over the hump, or is this like everybody else that's here in Hoover this week saying this is Nick Saban's best team? This is Alabama's title to lose. It seems like Georgia and Clemson maybe are the only 2 teams in the country that have any say in that, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe some people think Oklahoma or maybe Ohio. I mean, there's a couple of places that have enough talent to talk about that. You know what? I do think this is the year Georgia can do it. I think their schedule's set up right for it. I think, you've heard the stat. They've got more 5-stars on their roster than anybody in the country, and you cannot challenge Alabama on a serious basis. Doesn't mean you can't upset them with the right combination like Ole Miss did, but Ole Miss couldn't challenge Alabama as a program and then win the West, as we saw. Right. They had enough talent to beat them, but to better them, to be the better program, you have to have talent to get through the whole season, and Georgia has that, and Kirby is a good coach. And I just got a feeling that it's not like everybody's catching up with Alabama, but Georgia is the team that has made the strides that can do that. The question I have is can they get through and win the East, which could be a little troublesome because of Florida. I just don't know where they're going to be at. I think they're still a year or two away. But if you lose that Florida game, then it's hard to win the division.
What has Kirby done to get Georgia to that point? I mean, is it basically just been carbon copy the Alabama program and make it Alabama East?
100%. What Kirby has done, Georgia hiring Kirby was also addition by addition and addition by subtraction, because Kirby was recruiting Georgia for Alabama, and they could not close the border. I mean, Nick Saban got, I won't say everybody he wanted, but he got the majority of what he wanted out of Georgia. And he's not getting all of those guys now. He's still getting some of them. But Kirby, it's all recruiting based to start with. The thing that's going to be interesting is to see does Kirby have the staff to coach him up. If you go back to Nick Saban's original staff at Alabama, it was like a list of Wall of Fame Rivals Recruiter of the Year assistants. It was let's stock the cupboard. These guys are here to do, to bring in the inventory and put it on the shelves. And other than Joe Pendry, who was an NFL offensive line coach who was awesome at that, the rest of it was recruiters. And you saw a subtle shift after about 2 years and 3 years where it started being replaced by now it's developmental coaches who could still recruit and still had some recruiters, but they weren't just all recruit, no coach guys. They were guys who could take those talented players and develop them into NFL-type talents. And that's what we have to see if Kirby can do.
Let's talk about Alabama for a minute. It's a program that you covered for a long time. You're very familiar with it. Is the people that say this is his best team, is that right? And if not, how close to his best team could this be?
Last time I saw his team, that defense did not look like his best defense. I don't know where that's coming from. Offensively, you can see the talent abounds. You've got playmakers all the way around. I've seen a better group of running backs at Alabama, with Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson and that crew, and Eddie Lacy. Not that these guys aren't good, but I've seen what I thought was a better group. Maybe a better offensive line. That's yet to be seen. They lost more NFL talent there, so we'll see. Defensively, I'm not 100% sure. I don't think they probably have the best defensive line in the SEC. I think Auburn on paper does. And maybe some others can challenge that. They've still got great talent on the defensive line. They've got good talent at linebacker, and I think Dylan Moses is that next great Alabama linebacker. But I saw that secondary get torched late in the year. Not just one time, not just by the best college quarterback in the nation and maybe in history as a freshman at Clemson. That guy was incredible, but others did that to him. Georgia did that to him in the SEC championship game. Where's that coming from? If I guess you can say if they got a good kicker, it would be Nick Saban's best team because that's where they've hurt the most. But
I think
it will be another really good Saban team, really national championship contender. But I don't know about the best.
I think it's the Tua thing, and it's Najee Harris, and it's the talent they have at receiver and their ability to be explosive, and I think it's just the intimidation factor that is Alabama after the better part of a decade.
Yeah, and the question is, are they still intimidating people? That's getting chipped away. It's been a couple of years since they've won a national championship. Where's the mystique now? So, no, I think it's going to be a team that's awful hard to beat and that most teams have no chance to beat. But I don't know. Well, they'd have to run the table, which I'm not sure they will, to be Nick Saban's best team. And we got to also see Tua get through a whole season healthy.
It's an Alabama team that has to go to College Station. It has to go to Auburn. Mm-hmm. They play LSU in Tuscaloosa, where LSU has traditionally played very poorly. But it is a talented LSU team with a veteran quarterback.
It's going to run the spread this year again, they say. We'll open up the offense in Baton Rouge. Is this the 9th year in a row that they're going to open up the offense?
Just changing the names.
By game 3, they're going to have 2 tight ends and a fullback and run it up the middle. If they lose to Texas, it'll scrap the whole thing. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
So who's the team in the West? If I told you that somebody in the West knocked them off, that somebody in the West besides Alabama's in Atlanta in December, who is it? Is it A&M? Are they finally to that place?
No, they're not. They're getting there. Jimbo's a good coach, and they've got a recruiting. They're in the middle of a recruiting hotbed where if they dominate Texas, which is going to be hard to do now, harder than it's been, then they can have that kind of team. If you just had to ask me, I would say Auburn because of the defensive front. I think don't they have the whole offensive line back?
They're pretty veteran on both sides of the ball. Yeah, that defensive line's good.
That's where it starts, and there's questions at quarterback and all that. And they've got what they think is the right type guy for that. But if I think Auburn's going to be a tough team to score on, and therefore a tough team to beat. And if you end up with Alabama with one loss in the West and Auburn with one loss in the West, and Auburn beats Alabama, well, they get the tiebreaker and they get to go get beat by Georgia in the championship game.
If Gus Malzahn doesn't have that kind of season, I know that there's a huge buyout and all of that stuff, but the emotions kick in at that point. It's kind of a long-winded question. What does he have to do to survive? And if he doesn't, where is that job today?
Oh, it's easy. All he has to do is beat Alabama and Georgia and win the SEC championship. And then he can't lose in the first round of the playoffs. And once you win the first round, you can't lose the final. So, yeah, he's boxed into a corner where I just don't see a way it works out unless he wins big. And then the next year, if it falls off, they're ready to get rid of him.
Yep.
They just need to it needs to be financially feasible for the power brokers, and it needs to be any excuse for the other people. He's past his sell-by date, and I don't know exactly why, except if Nick Saban was somewhere else, I don't think he would be on the hot seat. I think it's keeping up with Alabama, and it's going to be hard for them to find a person who can do that.
We have this conversation, seems like every year, as Nick Saban walks around here at the Hyatt Regency, Winfrey. How much longer does he do this?
I think he's getting near it, a year or two, but then you see him and he's walking by right now, and, he doesn't look 67 years old, and he takes care of himself. He actually had the hip surgery as a preventive thing, like I'm going to have it now so I can get through the season without a problem, and I think he takes care of himself. He's one of those guys that I don't know what he would do if he wasn't coaching. He's not Steve Spurrier, who would be happier on the golf course. And then while he's on the golf course, every once in a while he misses football. He lives and breathes this, which is the perfect place for Nick Saban is Tuscaloosa, because nobody does football 24/7, 365 like Tuscaloosa does, except maybe Green Bay, Wisconsin in a different way. So he'll do it as long as he feels like he can do it at his level. Being in Tuscaloosa, there's been a couple of years where you heard behind the scenes that there were some rumblings that this might be it. But I think he's driven to win another national championship. And then it's a question of, at that moment, does he decide now's a good time to bow out, or hell, I can get me 2 or 3 more of these.
Last thing, I do a mailbag every week, and I get this question pretty consistently about Major League Baseball expansion. You're there in Nashville, which is one of the cities that would make a lot of sense if baseball decides to expand. How often do you hear in Nashville, real chatter about Major League Baseball in the Music City at some point in the next few years?
Well, our numbers at the Tennessean, which I've written about that topic because there's a group trying to do it, and the commissioner has mentioned Nashville as a possibility, so it's not just made up out of whole cloth. Those numbers reflect that there's a lot of interest in baseball in Nashville, and every time that topic is broached, it grows. So, it's a long season, and you got to support a lot of home dates. I think the one thing people overlook, Nashville would be on the bottom end of the markets as far as size in Major League Baseball, but so would anywhere else you expand to except Montreal. It's not like there's cities of 12 million people that don't have a baseball team. Philly's got one. I don't know if you noticed. Houston's got one. So my point there is the thing that makes it really viable is those tourism months. People are in town. If you put the ballpark, and especially if you make it, say, across the river from downtown, which is, I think, where the Titan Stadium is, and where there's property to do that, and build a mixed-use, development that has you can expand downtown across the river, I think it would go gangbusters. I think more than half of your tenants would be out-of-town people. The thing you got to do is make it viable within baseball, because you're in the middle of 3-0 markets that all kind of have some roots in Nashville, with Atlanta and Cincinnati and St. Louis within driving distance, and I think it'd have to be an AL team, to be viable for that reason. How many people from New York would come to Nashville as their getaway? Yankees fans, okay, that's the road game I'm going to this year.
Yep.
I'm going that weekend. So I think it would be successful, and I think it's going to happen, quite frankly.
Tommy, thanks for the time. It's always fun.
All right, thank you, Neil.
Thanks to Jeffrey, Mike, John, and Tommy for their time today, and of course to Neil for compiling those over the last couple days in Hoover. Tomorrow, Neil and I will be back. We'll talk a little bit, and we'll finish up some other interviews that we got from media days as well, as those are ongoing. That wraps up today. So appreciate all those guys. Appreciate you guys for listening, and we'll be back tomorrow.